good, people? Welcome to a brand new episode of Identity Talk for Educators Live, the show for the unsung heroes of education. I'm your host, Sarfo-Mensah. And if this is your first time tuning in to this podcast, I welcome you and I hope that you return for future episodes, especially after this one, which I know you'll enjoy. And if you are a returning listener or viewer of the podcast, as always, I welcome you back and I hope that you find tonight's episode one that is informative, enlightening, and of course, insightful. So before we get into the main event, just a reminder for folks who are on YouTube, make sure you hit that red subscribe button so you can get future episodes and notifications. Also, if you'd like to submit a donation to help us build this platform, we have a Cash App account, which you can access with the handle $IDTALK4ED, or you can go to Venmo using the handle at Kwame SM. And to get past episodes of this podcast, you can go to our main website at IDTALK4educators.com. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate it. As is the case sometimes with podcasts, we have technical difficulties. And that was the case with this episode, at least the first few minutes of it, which is why I wanted to record this for y'all today to properly introduce this episode's guest, Mike and Nita Creekmore. Married couple, both phenomenal educators. One is an instructional coach, the other is a school counselor. And they come together and they make magic. And that magic has produced a new book, which is called Every Connection Matters, which we talk about in this episode. And as you watch this episode, you'll learn a lot more about their individual upbringings, their journeys into this education field, and how they ultimately came together to do the work that they do in schools. So I'm so excited and honored to present to you all this week's episode with Mike and Nita Creekmore. So hope y'all enjoy. Yeah, there's so much to cover. And I know I have both of y'all here. I always like to start from the beginning and then work our way up to where we are now. Before we even got into this field, we all probably had aspirations of doing something else. Maybe I know that was my case.
Same.
I'm not sure if that was the case for y'all. So I want to give y'all a chance to just each share what or who inspired you to become educators. So of course, we're gentlemen, so we're going to let ladies first.
Absolutely.
So I would have to say my mother. My mother was a physical education teacher all of my life. So I got dragged, I say dragged, but dragged around to like after school stuff, field day, helping her set up for field day, going in the summertime to the school. And I think that was probably what ignited my love for just public education, being in the schools and all of that. But I really I've always known I wanted to be an educator since I was about 12, which is like cliche.
Yeah.
I know it's
you
cliche.
are truly a rare breed.
But yes, but I knew I wanted to be an educator. I was helping tutor my young girl who was our next door neighbor, Emily. And I just remember loving how it felt to read to her, help her read books, all those things. And as soon as I got to college, I knew I wanted to be in education. They didn't have it as a major. So I majored in English with a minor in education and got my master's in elementary ed. And so that has been my path. Although my path has taken me multiple places of being a teacher, being an instructional coach, and now presenting and doing instructional coaching. But I've always wanted to be an educator. I know Mike's path was different a little bit. And so he can tell you about his.
So my path, I actually wanted to be a doctor. Coming out of school, I wanted to be a doctor. Hate to admit, I kind of low-key was a cliche because all throughout high school, I played basketball until I got injured. So I actually did have hoop dreams. I was pretty decent. Played point guard. I was pretty fast back in my time. I must say the person that had an influence on me definitely was my older sister, because my older sister has been in education for well over 20 years. So my older sister, Rhonda, shout out to her. She definitely pushed me towards that direction. But then I did this thing, obtaining my undergrad degree in psychology. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who are familiar with that, there's really not much you can do with an undergrad degree in psychology. So I kept it pushing and went to grad school. When I went to graduate school, that's where I met two of my professors, Dr. Gail Rouse and Dr. Charlene Harper Brown, who had a heavy influence on me in the
Mhm.
counseling realm. So I went back to school for my master's in counseling psychology, and I took the non-traditional route into education. Many of you probably know that I do still maintain a professional license. I am a licensed professional counselor, i.e. therapist. So I actually did that for quite some time in the community, also at different psychiatric hospitals, Department of Juvenile Justice, Department of Family and Children Services, you name it, in any community mental health or social services, I've kind of worked in that capacity.
Mhm.
So when I got into education, as I entered the school as a school counselor, my wife also influenced me. So I have to say I've had multiple inspirations throughout that have played a huge role in the success that I have in schools today.
Thanks.
Oh, anytime, man.
All right, man. That's what's up. That's what's up. And I know with the two of y'all actually are college sweethearts.
So there's a funny story there.
I'm wondering, yeah, talk about that.
Yeah. You talk about that.
So I always tell people, me and Mike met in college, but we didn't date in college. We were friends in college.
Yeah, Kwame, we wouldn't have made it. We actually dated in college. That was a different time of my life. So
we wouldn't have made it in college, but we knew each other in college. We went to a predominantly white university, and so like the black circuit and like the people of color were really, really tight.
Yeah.
So we knew each other very well, but we did not date in college. And so about 20, I guess it was like 15 years later, right?
Yeah.
We connected again.
Yeah,
we both went our separate ways, connected again. And so we started dating as older folks, and then we got married. We dated for about, I guess, 2 to 3 years, and then got married.
And so you're leaving out some blanks there.
I am leaving out some blanks.
Just a few. So her freshman year, so I'll tell you the story. This is the story y'all want. This is the real story right here. Freshman year, and I'm going to divulge a little bit more information.
Okay.
Nita and I both came in to University of South Carolina through the provisional year program.
Mm-hmm.
So back during that time, the late 1900s, kids circle around story time.
97.
Yeah, 1997, fall of 1997, we were in this program it was the PY program for provisional year,
Mm-hmm.
which meant that either you had a high enough GPA to get in, but your SAT scores were not high enough,
Mm-hmm.
or your SAT score was high enough, but your GPA was not cutting the mustard.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave students such as us that opportunity.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like I equated it to like the 13th year, because all of our classes were in the Coliseum, Carolina Coliseum.
Mm-hmm.
So all of our classes were there. They gave us the opportunity. It's kind of like a show and prove, right? And true story, I say close to about 90% of the students who were in the PY program went on to complete all 4 years at
Mm-hmm.
University of South Carolina, because we were on a very tight schedule. We didn't have much wiggle room at all. So it wasn't like a lot of flexibility given to us to be able to fail this or fail that. Like you had to have a certain grade in each class.
And there's a lot of support. We had a lot of support.
Lots of support.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have class together, but we had class around the same time. So she's leaving. I've been peeping. I've been looking. I was checking her out.
Oh my God.
I was like, dang, man, shawty bad. Like, she
God.
looked good. Like, and like, it was a thing, like me and my homeboys, like, a lot of guys can relate to this on campus. You kind of have, young ladies that you think are like, they up there. And you were up there.
So are you.
So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I approached her, and I wasn't used to like approaching. Like that wasn't my thing. I kind of like played the background, and like, they might find their way over to me. But so I approached her, and I just was on some real chivalrous,
Yes.
hey, let me hold your books. Like,
you did hold my books.
We walked all the way back to her dorm.
Mm-hmm. And I told him, you're not going to my dorm room. It's not happening.
And I had no intention of trying to make anything happen at all.
But we talked in the
lobby.
Of the
we sat
dorm.
down, we talked in the lobby. And I think I gave her a hug and kissed her on the cheek. And she went on to pledge Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated her freshman year. So she was kind of off the yard.
Mm-hmm.
Like she kind of did the disappearing act. And by the time she reappeared spring semester, I had already chosen an organization I want to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of one of those things that she came off and I was getting ready to go under. So like, and then once I reemerged, like my time was kind of split. Both of our times were split between our organizations. So
Yeah.
we just lost touch. We still knew each other, but mutual respect there, but it wouldn't have worked in college.
Yeah. But yeah, so 15 years later, we found each other and this is where we are.
So that's the real story.
That's the story in the story.
Yeah.
All right, that's what's up. So, as I was doing my research, and I kid you not, this is crazy. So, tell me, when is y'all wedding anniversary? What date do y'all get married?
June 1st.
June 1st.
Okay, my birthday is on June 1st.
Oh, wow.
And my wife's birthday is on June 1st as well. We both had birthdays on June 1st.
Wow. Wow.
That's a special day.
Yes,
That's
it
a special
is.
day.
Extremely special day. Wow.
That's what's up.
We're never going to forget, right?
Ever.
We're never going to forget that.
Kwame,
we got you.
We like this.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, wow.
I had to bring that up. I knew y'all was coming.
Yeah, that's dope though. That's dope.
Is.
Yeah. So listen, we all went through K-12 schooling, and you're on this podcast. So when I'm on this podcast, we talk about identity, how identity shapes the way that we navigate life, the way that we navigate the different spaces we're in. So for each of you, I'm curious to know, as you were going through that schooling, were there any struggles, whether it be internal or external, with embracing who you were and showing up as your authentic self? So if any, what were some of those struggles?
I love this question. It's so interesting. I grew up in Northern Virginia, so Woodbridge, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C., which is a very diverse community. I grew up with on my street, just diversity, embracing any culture on my street. And at first, when I started digging into just identity, I didn't feel like I had a lot of struggles. But as I've been really digging into identity in the last 5 years, 7 years of really even to the point of doing ancestry.com, my family laughs at me. I'm really trying to find where my people come from and all of that. And so, I always knew that I was Black. My family, my mom's Black, my dad's Black. What part of the African heritage is really part of me? Or, I grew up in a very heavy Creole, Louisiana Creole household. And so being in schools when I was little, it was more diverse. And it feels like the older I got, the more the diversity started to shift, in which I was one or two or three of the only Black folks in my classes. As I'm older now, I feel like I had a lot of internal struggles with identity, in the sense of showing up as who I am authentically, my hair, you know what I mean? Embracing my natural hair and wanting it always straight, always, pressed, which is something that definitely is cultural, but also, wanting to embrace my authentic self and having the love for my kinks and my waves and my kitchen and all of that. I think I had a lot of internal struggles. I think that a lot of the things that I faced was microaggressions in middle and high school. I would even say in college, with microaggressions, little things that were said that seemed to get passed over. And then it's after a while you realize, what they just said that started to affect me, microaggressions that happened. And so now as an adult, in the ever changing, it's so interesting. I just was talking, I didn't get a chance to talk to you about this yet, but I was just talking to my therapist about that. Just the ever changing evolution of identity and different times of my life, and I'm 44, entering to the halfway mark of the hill, right? And so I'm getting inched up to the middle mark of the hill, and which identity markers are super salient to me right now. And and so thinking about that, I think I'm at a place now, as far as my racial identity, how I show up, I just am who I am. I've gotten to that place of just I am who I am, and just embracing each part of my authentic self, and learning about my West African heritage, and trying to make foods that are West African sometimes, or read about it and read about the culture, so I can feel connected to the ancestors. Yeah, I feel as a child, I think that was a hard space, and I feel if I would have been able to talk about it more in like school, talk about it more. And it's like, that's what we just do. We talk about our identities because our identities are who we are, and we're able to show up in community and bring our beautiful selves. I think it would have been a different, trajectory for me. So yeah, that's been.
Or even had the representation there, like
Representation. And I think about often, I didn't have my first Black teacher until 5th grade, and I say her name all the time, like Miss Polidor, and I say teacher as in the sense of school, but my family was my first teacher. But like 5th grade, Miss Polidor, she just was everything to me because I feel like that was my first Black teacher in which I could feel represented in the school that I was in. Yeah. What about you?
I think for me, it was more, it's like I have to work backwards, right? Like now I have to work now and then go back, because the reason why I even entered into the school system after 13, 14 years in community mental health is because I wanted students to have an experience that I didn't have in school. I work in an elementary school, and for those of you who are listening, there's probably not many of me in elementary schools as a school counselor. So, and this year I work with kindergarten and 1st grade. I always felt like if I ever entered into the school system, I always wanted elementary because I felt like I could have an impact earlier. Mm-hmm. So they can have that experience of having their first Black male counselor earlier. So I can intervene and hopefully put out some, or help plant some seeds of growth. So by the time they get to middle and high school, some of the things that I've taught and worked with them on and implanted in them start to grow. So the trajectory is a little bit better. That being said, my experience as a military brat, my father was in the Air Force for 20 years. I always found myself, especially when I was younger, found myself being like the only one. Like when I was younger and I was back in the day, they called it TAG, Talented and Gifted program. In elementary school, I'm looking around and it's just me. That happened a lot. And I have to say, Michael and Frida did an excellent, my parents did an excellent job of constantly pouring into me and building me up. So I never, Nita can tell you now, like I never had, self-esteem wasn't like, even now.
Not a problem.
Yeah, Mike and Frida did a great job making sure my self-esteem was always high. I was fully aware of my self-worth, knowing what I was capable of, knowing some of the pitfalls I may face in life, and understanding the importance of race early. And they taught me that in elementary school. We were stationed in Germany, and I had an experience that I'll never forget. Situation where, again, one of the only Black students in the class, definitely the only Black boy in the class, and students, started asking if I had a tail because they thought Black people had tails. Like, so that was the thing. And I went home and talked to my parents about it. Of course, Mike and Frida were pissed. Sister mad as well. But they set me down. I understood this early. Like I'm talking 2nd grade. Early understanding of the importance and even understanding the why behind the hate, the why behind the racism, understanding the history of our ancestors, our culture, like what we are capable of, what we have done, the things that we have done that we don't get credit for. I was aware of that early. So that helped me as I got older, realize walking into certain situations, still sometimes being one of the only, but knowing, okay, I know what you're about to try to do. I know how to finagle that. I know the little, I know what I need to do to cooperate, deal with, and even at times change the narrative when needed. But most importantly, being in spaces to where I am able to serve as a positive representative of what Black males are. And sometimes, we wear sneakers. Sometimes we wear button-ups. So it's not fitting the stereotype of what you think that we are, but showing you like physically what we are on a daily basis. So that was it for me. It was just a lot of, I felt need to work. The start where I'm at now is for you guys to understand like why, like the why behind it all.
And I want to stay with you for a second, Mike, because I think in the school counselor capacity, usually we're the PE teachers, we're the deans, we're the paraprofessionals. So to see you in that capacity is just super dope. And we need more brothers, more Black men in that capacity. But the question I wanted to ask you was this. So just to give some context for the audience, we know what's been going on the past few years. Even pre-pandemic, there was a whole bunch of anti-Black racism going on in our schools. That's always been there, systemically and even at the interpersonal level. That's not new. But 2020 on, we noticed that things have intensified. And then, on top of dealing with the pandemic, now we're seeing all kinds of legislation. We have the book bans that have been taking place. And then we look at LGBTQ plus issues, especially as it pertains to Black trans students who are dealing with higher levels of trauma compared to cis hetero Black boys, you know what I mean? Like, and black girls as well. Like, the statistics are there, and all the other things that we know about the anti-CRT rhetoric, all this stuff.
Yep.
As school counselor, I'm curious to know how much of an impact all of what I mentioned has had on your work, because you're dealing with young children who are hearing these messages, who are seeing these messages. And I'm wondering how that's translating into the work that you do with the young brothers and sisters. I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
The first thing is you hit the nail on the head when you said the anti-CRT. It's been comical how people will try to equate CRT to SEL. They'll say that SEL is CRT. Social emotional learning is not critical race theory. They're not the same thing. That's a false equivalency. It's not the same. So there are some districts right here in Georgia where they are not able to even use the word social emotional learning. You're not allowed to teach it, which is preposterous to me, because counseling is social and emotional learning. Anyone that knows, that's familiar with counseling and familiar with social emotional learning, that's the 100% of what we do. Mm-hmm. When we're not doing paperwork. But that is what we do, is social and emotional learning. So fortunately, my county is not that way. My school district's not that way. We actually have a SEL department. So that's been great. But trying to get other people to understand the difference between the two has been very hard at times for people who have their heels dug in. The main thing that I've found to be challenging, and I don't want to minimize it, because I have to say that at my school currently, I haven't had any, let me find some wood to knock on. I haven't had any negative experience or any major challenges in that way. What I have had at times is finding myself educating adults, just educating them on cultural differences, things that they may seem as a cultural abnormality, helping them understand that's normal. He doesn't want to wear his sneakers outside because he just got them. They're brand new. And he, that means something to him. Mm. And oftentimes, if I'm not mistaken, there was a ASCD article not long ago equating and explaining why sneaker culture is big and to Black boys in elementary, middle, and high school. So trying to explain that. Many of you who know me know that I love sneakers. That's my thing. That's my jam.
I will name that some girls do like sneakers.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Because you're gonna join the team too.
I'm just saying. Yes, go ahead.
But I say that because that's been a pervasive thing that has happened. That I found myself trying to educate others about cultural differences. And so far, fortunately, again, that hasn't been. Other than that, outside of that, it hasn't been anything that I have dealt with, as far as any LGBTQ plus issues, because it is elementary. As of right now at my current school, those issues haven't arisen yet. Not saying that they won't, but the main challenge is always helping create awareness, because that's the first step. A lot of people will act or will truly not know. And so it is our job to help educate. It's not our sole job to do that. They have to get out there and do the work themselves to familiarize themselves, because kids that we're serving are not the same kids from 20, 30 years ago. They have a lot more challenges than some of us faced when we were in school. So, but to answer your question, that's been the crux of it thus far, especially this year.
I might even say for you, don't you think the connection of your identity and the self-awareness that you have as a person, as a counselor, has helped with that too? Because
that has been something that I have, and I hate to say it in this way, but it's kind of a situation of helping people understand that I'm not, for lack of a better word, a one-trick pony. I don't just dress a certain way, or I'm not just able to just give high fives and special handshakes. There's depth behind that and meaning behind that, and helping them understand. So I think that that's important as well. Especially given the, like you said, the socio-political climate as it is right now, it kind of paints us in a different light. So it is important for me to help show a more favorable light that we're in.
So this season, Identity Talk for Educators Live will be including ad spots for businesses, products, and events that are adding significant value to their communities. And here's the catch. You don't have to be an educator or an education-based business to be a part of this. We're looking for people who are just doing great work in the community, and we want to use our platform as a way to amplify their work. So if you are an entrepreneur or you know of an entrepreneur who is doing just that, bring them in our direction. Have them reach out to us. If they want to learn more about their ad spots and how they can get themselves promoted on this platform, they can contact myself, Kwame at identitytalkforeducators.com. I'll say it one more time. It is Kwame at identitytalkforeducators.com. Hope to hear from you, and let's keep on amplifying our work and building each other up. Yeah, it's heavy. It's a lot that's happening right now, and all we could do is just continue to do what we can. I mean, I know down in Georgia, it's like there's no teacher unions. I know that for a fact. So if ish were to hit the fan, ain't no protection.
Nope.
So I wanna put that out there because I used to teach in the state of Massachusetts, which is heavily unionized. So if I said something that people thought was out of pocket, I could at least file a grievance. There was a process I could go through to protect myself. So I had more latitude to be a bit more bold, but that's not the case in other states and districts or counties. That's also what makes this situation even more troubling, depending on who you are.
Absolutely.
But Nita, I want to talk to you because I know you doing instructional coaching. I just started my first year as an instructional coach at this international school, and it's been a humbling experience to say the least. And funny thing is, one of the books that I looked at was Art of Coaching by Elena Aguilar. And I know that, you work with her through Bright Morning Consulting. So anybody that's doing coaching, y'all got to get the whole Elena Aguilar series. It's like real talk. But I want you to just talk to me about your experience working with Bright Morning Consulting, because I know you've been there for I think a couple years at this point. And just tell me, how has that experience facilitated your growth as an educator?
Oh man. So I had to take it back to 2017 is when I first became a coach. And I was so excited to become a coach. And I was like, what do I do now?
What's next?
I knew I was supposed to support teachers, but it was well, how do I start? Where do I go? And I remember, hearing about Elena Aguilar. She's amazing. And then I read her book, The Art of Coaching, which is, I will agree, it's like a coaching Bible. If you don't have that book, if you're a coach, even if you're a leader, it's just an amazing book to have. But that book was everything to me. And I read a lot of different coaching books, but that book was the way that I wanted to coach. I wanted to coach in a transformational way, in a way that wasn't just transactional. Because what I found is when I started coaching in a transactional way, it wasn't sustainable, and it was I would coach and then I'd go back and it'd be the same. And then I'd be it'd be this whirlwind. So I started implementing some of the things from her book and her online resources for free. And then I would follow her on Instagram and she would, give tips and tricks. And I was like, okay, let me try this. And it would work. And I'd be like, oh my goodness, so amazing. Yeah. So I started really implementing all of that. And from there, I started sharing on Love Teach Blast, which is my Instagram account and business on the side. And I would do some instructional coaching there. And I would share, I just did this coaching conversation, or I just did this, and this is the book that I used. And so that's how me and Elena Aguilar got connected, was through Instagram, which I think Mike remembers that day. We were about to have an Instagram live, and I was so excited. And then the internet went down and I jumped in my car and ran down the road. It was really like that. And so we had an Instagram live with me just kind of talking through using some of her resources with her. But working at Bright Morning has been amazing. One thing I will say is I'm always a learner. Been a coach for 6+ years and I am always learning. I feel like I just I'm a sponge, because I don't feel like I've ever arrived. I always feel like while I'm also a coach, I am learning alongside. And I think that has been the biggest thing for me. And coaching has been, I just want to get better, and I want to get better at coaching, and I want to make sure that I'm coaching the human in front of me and not forgetting that that person as an identity marker, as an educator or a leader, they are a human being with a lot of things on their plates and a lot of things probably happening at home. And so just making sure that I'm doing that. And I feel like transformational coaching is just a part of me and like how I show up. And working with Bright Morning has been amazing. And it has taken my coaching to a whole nother level. Definitely.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I've come across that's been a challenge is, and I think you can relate to this, you're trying to build trust with the teachers you're coaching and maybe observing a lesson or just their practice overall. And you're thinking to yourself, well, listen, I've been in the classroom before. I've been in that teacher's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go up there and start taking over the lesson. I want to respect that teacher's space, but at the same time, recognizing that there are certain things that are not happening in that teacher's practice that either you've notified the teacher on and you haven't really seen the improvement,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just like,
Yes.
I want to just take the marker from you, but I don't want to do it in front of your kids.
Yeah.
Because then it makes you look it makes you look bad. So that's the part that I'm negotiating in my head.
I think for just being in schools, because, oh my gosh, I'm out of schools now, but I was in schools for 18 years. I think for me as a coach was something that I wanted to make sure in building that trust is respect, like you were saying, like respecting their classroom community that they have built. And then also seeing things that may be problematic or things that you may want to shift in teaching practices. And for me, I think the growth that I had to come to and alongside the teacher was, like maybe my way doesn't have to be the way, right? Like and so there is some growth there for me as a coach, and realizing that the teacher having agency is so important in their learning, in their practice, because the buy-in is going to be so much sweeter when they have the agency and getting there. And so like for me, it would be like the urgency to like get them there, like because you're thinking about the kids in the classroom, you're thinking about, I want this to be done tomorrow, like this has to, because you care so much. But I feel like the transformation and having it deep rooted is in the collective learning together.
I totally agree. Totally agree. So a major reason why we're here today is because we want to talk about just the importance of connection. So we see where we're going with this, right? You all married, educated couple. My wife is not an educator. So whenever I come home from a rough day and I'm explaining to her just things that happen throughout the day, I'm throwing at her acronyms that she has no idea what they mean. So I'm usually just educating her on what was going on during the day. But in y'all case, y'all live this life together.
Yes.
Y'all go to your respective schools. You have your days, your ups and downs, and then you come back home to your family. I'm just wondering, thinking about connection, right? How do y'all continue to maintain your relationship while collectively and individually navigating those rigors that come with being educators? What's the magic, if you will? How do y'all make it work?
3 words: work-life balance. I wish it was that simple. But in all honesty, we have to build in time for each other. We have to have that time to reflect and to vent, because sometimes the reflection can turn into a vent session. It happens. I think when we're both in education, it's like the gift and the curse, because you get it. It's the gift and you get it.
Yeah.
So some of the conversations can be, they can be hard sometimes because we're very honest with each other.
Yes.
We're honest, and sometimes it may be a situation where we may be trying to play devil's advocate and it may not go so hot. It might be like, you know what? You don't get it. No, I really do get it. But I'm trying to offer you a different perspective just to help you see what they might have been thinking. And it may be times when, it could be the other way around. And it could be we're both like mad, like at the same situation, not with each other, but at the same situation, because we're like, I can't believe this happened. Can you believe that? No, I don't. That's crazy.
Real talk, we were both mad while writing certain chapters of our book. And like when the editor read it, they were like, yo,
y'all
like,
were mad.
Y'all were angry. Y'all need to think through this and take a pause.
Yeah.
And so like there are times when we're both in a space where we're just feeling a lot of emotions and a lot of anger. But you were always in the school system. And so I always say this, like I used to come home. I wasn't an instructional coach at the time. I was a teacher for 13 years. So I would come home with my big, I would say like wagon of like work to grade and folders to create and all these things. And he would be like, yo, like your workday is done. And I was like,
but at that time, I wasn't in the school.
That's what I mean. Yeah. And so he didn't really get it. Like, yeah, but I had 50,000 meetings throughout the day during my planning time. And, you know, this happened and this happened, this happened. And so when he got into the schools, I kind of chuckled a little bit when he would come home and talk. Like, he wouldn't bring a lot of work home as far as like grading papers, but of like just the stories he would tell or having to vent and talk about things. And sometimes I would chuckle the first year because I was like, yo, that's what, like, you get it now.
No, what really did it was when they talk about a teacher tired, like it's levels to it.
Yes.
Like when you had all summer or you had a break off and then you go back, you like, yeah, I'm ready. And you get home by 7 o'clock, lights out. Like, yo, what? So the first time that happened to me, she was like, babe, no,
you're not tired.
Said, not you all the way in the bed at 7:30. I was like, babe, I ain't got nothing left. I'm tired. I'm exhausted.
That's one thing he didn't get. Like I would be so tired so early, you know, like I still go to bed early, but I would be so tired so early, and he didn't understand that. But once he got into the field, he understood, we're tired or that. One thing, I do think he's better at this than I am as far as like making sure we're maintaining like our relationship and maintaining a balance of, okay, it's okay to get it out. And then, so what's going to be your plan?
Yeah. But
you know, like not just venting and just going around this big tornado of venting, like that's not going to help. And so like, what's going to be your plan? And it used to frustrate me because I'm like, I'm still pissed.
Yeah.
And so he's like, okay, I get it. But like, what's the next step?
My theoretical orientation, one of them is I'm solution focused.
Yeah.
So we're going to get it all out. We're going to put it all out there on the table. Now let's work on finding the solution, because just as much energy as you're putting into venting and getting it out, we need to try to like mirror that energy and finding a solution that's going to be fitting for you.
Yeah. And I think we both offer like different perspectives that help both of us out.
Right.
So like his perspective would help me, and like my perspective in having like years in education and being like, I'm sure they were thinking X, Y, Z. And he'd be like, yo, like that's not how I show up. Well,
it's the politics. Yeah. I always said, Kwame, I would never run for any type of public office ever, because I don't play politics well. Yeah. Usually what you see is what you get. Like,
teaching is political. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
The whole system.
I said that, and then I went into education. What was I thinking? But in all seriousness, like I feel like that is the main thing for us, is to have that balance, to know that, okay, it's automatic, it's a given that, okay, we have that built-in time to talk about our day.
And our kids know, and we have times when we don't, we're like, okay, we're going out. My kids are at age, our kids are at an age, we're like, okay, one of my kids' friends was like, your parents go on date night all the time.
How your parents always end up on date night?
Because we at least do date night at least twice a month, if not
at least
twice a month, where we're doing it without the kids, because we do stuff with the kids all the time.
Yes.
Where it's just us doing grown folks, you know, fun eating. We like to eat.
Foodies. Yes.
Foodies. So like we do things like that. But yeah, we definitely build that time into our schedules.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think this is a perfect segue into the book. Every connection matters, whether it's connection between husband and wife, connection between your children, because I mean, you take care of children during the school day, but guess what? You got your own offspring you got to take care of as well. They need that love too. So make sure that connection matters as well. I got 2 young ones. We started late, so we got ways to go before they leave the house. 6 and 7 months.
Oh, I love that.
Yep.
It's a good time, though. It's a good time.
Yes.
But
never a dull moment.
Yes, never a dull moment. Let's talk about Every Connection Matters. So you all co-authored a book, and you started to talk about points of that writing process that were frustrating for you. So I'd love for you all to give us the abridged version, because I know I'm writing a book right now that hopefully will be out in the summer, and I know how I know how daunting of a task that can be. But when you're writing it as co-authors, you all may have different opinions on how to approach different chapters, different topics. So then there's some tension here. Some people Mike might have to sleep on the couch one day because y'all arguing over a paragraph or a word,
Right.
and Nita might be tripping over something that Mike did or vice versa. So yeah, talk to us about the process. But even before that, what inspired y'all to write this book together?
We were asked to do a present on relationships, and it was through Get Your Teach On. It was it the Be About It one?
No, no.
It was a
That was
virtual
it was the
one.
virtual back to school
Back to
virtually.
school,
Get
yeah.
Your Teach On through Hope and Wade
And
King.
so we started kind of talking through relationships then and asking our kids about teachers' relationships with their teachers. And we just started on this thing. And so like we did that virtually, and then we continued talking. Like we continued having these conversations. It was so intriguing to hear from like our kids at that time. It was like 5,
Yeah, I think
11 or 12.
I know it was.
They were like middle school, high school, and like
kindergarten,
elementary.
first grade. No, kindergarten, middle school, and high school. Yeah.
And so we got to get like all 3 like levels, and we started asking like who's your favorite teacher? Why are they your favorite teacher? Yeah, your favorite teacher. What makes you like them? And just asking these questions.
And what is it you don't like about them?
Yes, or what's a teacher that you may not jive with or whatever.
Yeah.
And so we started having these conversations. So then me and Mike started just talking about just relationships in schools and just things that happen. And so from that, we would go to our respective schools and see different things happening and be like, yo. So we come home and talk about either a positive thing that was like this teacher did this, or this librarian did this. Well, now media specialist did this. We're like, person working in the cafeteria connected with the student in this way. This is things that we're seeing all around.
Or admin did this and staff loved it.
And the staff loved it, it's amazing. And then we started seeing things that weren't so great. And we would come, and that would be some of our venting sessions.
Yeah.
And so we we were like, this could be a whole book. And so we started kind of breaking it down in the different sections of a school, different relationships in a school that make the whole school run.
Yeah. Everyone who works in different capacities within the school building.
Yeah. And so we started writing. And so we did our proposal. We went through one publishing company that like the person ended up not working there anymore, and that kind of fell through. And I was disheartened. So I was like, yo, I'm done. And so Mike, is the more persistent. He's persistent.
I'm the bill collector. I'm gonna call you all the time and tell you, hey.
And so I was like, it's not, that means that we shouldn't do it. And he was like, behind my back, he sent it to ASCD. And so he wasn't going to tell me because he knew I was already like sad about the first situation. We ended up he sends me the email saying that, our proposal has been accepted. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know he did it. And so we started that process. And then the process started of writing.
The process began. So we had one chapter done already by the time we sent it, by the time ASCD accepted it, which was helpful because they loved that chapter. So it kind of that in turn became the blueprint, the format for each chapter. And hopefully those of you listening, when you see it, praying that you buy it. Don't want to sound like a battle rapper, but or someone trying to give you, please listen to my demo, but check out the book.
Yeah.
It is an easy read, very conversational in tone. And I think a lot of things will resonate with educators who work, or anyone who works in the school, period. It doesn't even necessarily have to be just an educator. I mean, a lot of it does translate to other professions and just in life, period.
Yeah.
But I feel like there were times during the course of the book when we were writing different chapters where we kind of were like,
at each other's throats.
Yeah, because I did have a different perspective, because even though, like Nita said, even though I wasn't in schools at first, when I was in community mental health specifically, I would go into the schools. So I would see different students. I would, work with them in the school, in their school setting. I knew, I could get the feel of, again, as a counselor, as a therapist, you can kind of pick up on vibes. A lot of people read vibes well. So you can pick up on the energy when you walk into a building, you walk into the front office and things like that. So I still was very much familiar with it. So there were things we would talk about. I'd offer one perspective. Nita might offer a different perspective. And there were a few chapters where we had to kind of meet in the middle.
Yeah.
And it was a labor of love. I will say that. It was definitely a labor of love.
And it's so funny because I had gotten to the point where I was like, hey, you just write this chapter and I write this chapter. And he was like, no, we write the words together. So truly, this book is us sitting in this office or sitting in our van or
or in a hotel room because we were at a volleyball tournament for our oldest daughter.
Like taking each line by line and talking through wordsmithing, and then like
letting the kids hear it.
Letting the kids hear it. Like, it's just, it literally was like that the whole time. So when Mike says it's like a labor of love, it absolutely is. And like, we put our all into this book, in the sense of like our time, our energy, our family was a part of it, and just our stories. And I think that it's a book that I wish I had gotten at any time in my education career. I can say, like, as a new teacher, I can say as a veteran teacher, but like, to know that, oh, they went through this too. Or like,
Right.
the story, like, we talk about our stories. And I think, the stories are powerful. And I think sharing the things that we did that we aren't so proud of, and the things that we did that we felt good about.
Wow. Shoot, you know what? In those situations where, y'all were beefing and figuring out how to write the chapters, y'all should just use ChatGPT as the tiebreaker. Just saying.
We had to figure it out. Would have been done.
It would have been,
book would have been done like a year ago.
Yes, 3 years.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Shoot, where was that when we was in college?
Right.
Right.
Exactly. You're so right.
Well, listen, y'all. Mike and Nita, thank y'all so much for coming on. This has just been a lovely conversation. Like I said, I love the work that y'all do collectively, and I know that this book is going to be a book that will be a helpful resource for many educators. Matter of fact, it transcends education. Anybody who's trying to work on building strong relationships needs to go get this book. In saying that, actually, before I even get to that, one last question, and this is probably the most important one. How do y'all stay true to the teachers in you?
You want me to go first? You go first.
Ladies first. Let's go first.
I've always had a teacher in me, Kwame. Like, I feel like I was born with it.
Did you play teacher when you were a little kid?
I play teacher. I play teacher a
6
lot.
years old?
I had my chalkboard.
You didn't put nobody in the corner though, did you?
Maybe. That was not good relationship building.
No, it wasn't.
But no, for seriously, like, I feel like I'm just a forever educator, forever teacher. And I say that a lot. And so I stay true to the teacher in me by always being a learner. I always feel like true teachers continue to learn, continue to grow. There's certain things, like even in education, when you're talking about like the science of reading and things like that, like that's not how I was taught how to teach reading. And so like even that is like continuously learning, continuously growing is how I stay true teacher in me. I like books. I collect books. I do. And so I believe in, and I tell my kids like the pathway to education is through books and the reading and really learning.
And Audible.
And Audible. That's right. I mean, audiobooks too. I have 2 accounts for that. But I feel like, really immersing yourself in being a learner and staying true to the teacher in me always. Yeah.
I think for me, the funny part is when you go into counseling, that's one of the helping professions, right? So I've always seen myself as a helper, and I help people learn, but I've always felt like I've stayed true to the teacher in me by being the best helper that I can be, whether it's being able to sit down with a student or even an adult, even a fellow educator, and help them understand the best way to move forward. Not giving them, not telling them what they need to do, but helping them, because I've always viewed myself as like a seed planter. Try to plant the seed and hope and pray that eventually it grows. I may not be around to see it grow, but as long as it grows, I feel like I've done my job because I planted that seed. I also at times feel like, helping people is like kind of like being a tour guide where you can kind of help them find their own path. So like I've always stayed true to that, regardless of what capacity I worked in, whether it was community mental health or in the actual school. It's always been Mike Creekmore as a helper. It's just been me.
All right. There it is, y'all. So once again, thank y'all for coming on. And listen, let people know how they can get a copy of the book, but also how they can connect with y'all on social media. So talk to them.
You can get the book at ASCD, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and is that it?
No, it was the book. It's one more. What's the one where?
Well, those 3 places.
Yeah, those are the 3 major. Those are the 3 major places right now.
Yeah, and then where can they follow us on social media?
Creekmore at Creekmore Conversations.
Creekmore Combos.
See, I always
Instagram.
I know everyone's listening is gonna be like, "Yo, how you didn't know your own handle, man?" Well, See what we went from Creekmore Conversations to Creekmore Convos.
We did.
So CREEKMORECONVOS.
Yep.
That's our
you can follow us
Instagram
on Instagram.
handle. And then personal handles.
Yeah, Love Teach Bless.
Love Teach Bless and bearded.school.counselor. You got to put the period in between each one. So all on Instagram.
All right. Awesome. Much love to y'all. Continue success. This book surely will be an Amazon bestseller. I'm calling it.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
And then we're going to connect another time.
Absolutely. Thanks again, bro.
All right.
Y'all take care.
All right, you too.
All right, y'all. So we just finished talking with the Creekmores about their new book, Every Connection Matters. If you haven't pre-ordered the book, make sure y'all do that on Amazon. That's it for today's show. So as I always like to say, I wish you all good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are in the world. And we're going to do this again another time. Peace out, y'all.